Most of the same crew that worked on Ebirah: Horror of the Deep returned as Honda and the rest of the original Godzilla team were preoccupied making Toho's other Kong outing, King Kong Escapes. A Pacific Island setting was chosen once again to help with budgetary constraints, but this time adding a crucial and beloved element, Godzilla's son, in Jun Fukuda's 1967 film, Son of Godzilla.
Let them fight.
You're a wizard, Harry.
You're gonna need a bigger boat. I'll be back.
Death has come to your little town, children.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Chills and Thrills. My name is Connor Dunham and I am here along with Chris, and today we are doing Son of Godzilla, which I grew up on. That is one of the films that I watched a lot as a kid. It's one of the cheesiest like little schlock fests, that a kid loves. It's, Godzilla has a son, and it's there's a lot of monster action, there's a lot of fun, and it's one of those ones that was easy to go back to as a kid. I mean, it was like I said, there's a lot going on, and with being a kid, you see one of your favorite movie monsters having a son. Yeah, I mean, as a kid, I never wondered like, okay, like, is there a mom Godzilla, or what's going on here? How does Godzilla have a son, or how how is this working? I don't know what your thoughts are, Chris, but I as I got older, I a teenager, I was like, oh, okay, like this doesn't make sense. They never explained it, but as you get older, you kind of don't care. You just kind of have fun and enjoy the movie.
Yeah, as a little guy, this was one that I liked renting from our local Blockbuster a lot, just because, like you said, when you're a kid, I think the concept of like son of Godzilla, Godzilla being a dad, is just kind of appealing when you're young, and it's a pretty simple plot. There's a lot of monster sequences in it, a lot of like monster screen time, so like it's easy for the kids, I think, to kind of get enthralled with it. And yeah, I suppose as a kid I maybe wondered about the monster stuff, but also, once Godzilla 98 came out and they had the whole like, oh, he's a boy, but he lays eggs thing. I think, like, I had an older brother, so I think when I would like ask those kind of questions, my older brother would just be like, well, look, it's just like that movie where he's a guy that lays eggs and doesn't need a lady to make eggs. This old Godzilla is probably the same way. And I just, when you're a kid, you just don't question it. So I guess that's that.
Yeah, for sure. I'm glad you brought that up about the '98 Godzilla, because once I seen that film, I didn't think about it right away. I seen that probably '99 or 2000 roughly, when I was like 6 or 7, and I was like, okay, well, like that might explain it. But other than that, I liked this film a lot as a kid. As I've grown older, I can still watch it and have fun with it. It's not one of my favorites, but it's one of the ones that if you want to get a young kid into Godzilla, this is probably one of the ones you want to show with like a goofy child version of Godzilla in it. So I mean, there's definitely fun to be had.
Yeah, if you've got that kind of like 8 or under crowd, I think that's the kind of kid that would watch this one and really have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me give you a little history on Son of Godzilla. This is a 1967 Japanese kaiju film, directed once again by Jun Fukuda, with special effects by Sadamasa Arikawa under the supervision of Eiji Tsuburaya. This was produced and distributed by Toho, and it is the eighth film in the Godzilla franchise. It stars Tadao Takashima, Akira Kubo, Akihiko Harada, and Beverly Maeda, with Hiroshi Sakita, Seiji Anoka, and Hiro Nakajima as Godzilla, and Martin the Dwarf as Manila. Son of Godzilla received a theatrical release in Japan on December 16th, 1967, and then it was released directly to television in the United States in 1969 through the Walter Reed Organization. So there's a little background on the film.
Yeah, and this is one of those examples of a film that has the Toho International English dub, which is usually found on most home market discs these days. It's kind of a little more stilted, a little more dry, but then it also had the sort of the unique American dub, which was performed a little bit more professionally, and that's where, depending on which dub you hear, you get things like Kamacuris also being called Jai Mantis, or Kumonga also being called Spyga. So that's where some of the alternate names come from.
Yeah, there's a lot of different names in this film. I did recognize that, but I'd prefer, Kamacuris or Kamacuris or Kamunga. I'm not a big fan of the Spiga, sorry, or the Gimantis.
Yeah, I
But
always
I
thought I always thought Giant Mantis was fun, just because it feels like one of those like old school giant monster names. If it's a giant praying mantis, so call it Giant Mantis. Like, I don't know, that's just like, that just feels very like pulp, pulpy to me, like old school. But I kind of like the unique names a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. Why don't we get into a trailer for the film, get a plot synopsis going, and we will come back with some numbers, some fun facts, and all of that good stuff, including what our favorites were from the film.
Sounds good.
原因は何だ？原因は
島の中央部より妨害エネルギーです。
放射能ゾーンで収容できんか？
収容不能です。そうだ。
ゴジラの教育ママじゃない教育パパか。
教育パパって何？ゴジラの赤ちゃんがいないわ。
A team of scientists are trying to perfect a weather controlling system. Their efforts are hampered by the arrival of a nosy reporter and by the sudden presence of a giant praying mantis. A reporter, Maki Goro, arrives on the island to find the scientists somewhat stir-crazy from the events and is allowed to stay as a maintenance worker. Whilst there, he also glimpses a mysterious woman the scientists were unaware of, apparently living in the jungle. First test of the weather control system goes awry when the remote control for a radioactive balloon is jammed by an unexplained signal coming from the center of the island. Eventually finding the woman, Saiko Matsumiya, she is revealed to be the daughter of a previous researcher on the island who warned about a gigantic species of spider. The balloon detonates prematurely, creating a radioactive storm that causes the giant mantises to grow to enormous sizes. Investigating the mantises, which are named Kamacuras, the scientists find the monstrous insects digging an egg out from under a pile of earth. The egg hatches, revealing a baby Godzilla. The scientists realize that the baby's telepathic cries for help were the cause of the interference that ruined their experiment. Shortly afterwards, Godzilla arrives on the island in response to the infant's cries, demolishing the scientist's base while rushing to defend the baby. Godzilla kills 2 of the Kamacuras during the battle, while one manages to fly away to safety. Psycho introduces herself to and bonds with the baby kaiju, feeding it some fruit. Godzilla then returns and adopts the baby. The baby Godzilla, named Manila, quickly grows to about half the size of the adult Godzilla, and Godzilla begins instructing its new charge on the important monster skills of roaring and using its atomic ray, as Mako and Psycho observe them. At first, Manila has difficulty producing anything more than atomic smoke rings, but Godzilla discovers that stressful conditions, i.e. stomping on its tail, or motivation produces a true radioactive blast. Manila comes to aid of Psycho when she is attacked by a Kamacuras, but inadvertently awakens Kumonga, a giant spider that was sleeping in a valley which killed Psycho's father. Kumonga attacks Psycho's cave where the scientists are hiding, and Manila stumbles into the fray. Kumonga traps Manila and the final Kamacuras with its webbing, but as Kumonga begins to feed on the deceased Kamacuras, Godzilla arrives. Godzilla saves Manila, and they work together to defeat Kumonga by using their atomic rays on the giant spider. Hoping to keep the monsters from interfering in their attempt to escape the island, the scientists finally use their perfected weather-altering device on the island, and the once tropical island becomes buried in snow and ice. As the scientists are saved by an American submarine, Godzilla and Manila begin to hibernate as they wait for the island to become tropical again.
All right, let me hit you with some numbers here quick. The budget for this film in 1967 was 260 million yen. And when Son of Godzilla was released on December 16th, 1967 in Japan, it sold 2.48 million tickets. When the film was reissued on August 1st, 1973, it received 610,000 extra attendees, adding up to a rough attendance total of just over 3 million. The American television version cut was 84 minutes, while the Japanese cut was roughly 87 minutes. So for this film, I mean, there wasn't much cut out. There was some stuff changed, like you mentioned earlier, the names and whatnot of different monsters. But other than that, I mean, the run times are almost identical.
Do you know the one notable scene that was actually cut?
I do not off the top of my head. If I watched it, I could probably point it out if I
Sure.
watched it again, but go ahead.
So it's actually the opening scene where the fighter plane is in the rain, or not the fighter plane, but the plane is in the rain, and they're detecting signals, and they see Godzilla in the water, and they kind of do the like, it's heading somewhere, but why? And then it goes to the Son of Godzilla title card. That was actually cut from that unique American version of the movie, which is perplexing because I understand they might want to get into the main plot of the movie a little faster, but that's actually the only time you see Godzilla for quite a long stretch in the movie. So you would think, why would you want to cut a tease of Godzilla from the beginning of the movie just to get into the main plot? But that's one of the scenes, that's like the only major scene they really cut, which is interesting.
Yeah. Once again, we got Chris spitting out a fun fact for. Way to remind me of that, because I did not know which scene they cut offhand.
Yeah, well, and nowadays, you'd have to go find an old VHS to get that cut of the movie. All of the DVDs and Blu-rays, they're just the original cut, so you wouldn't know.
I believe I do have this VHS somewhere
Oh,
in all my kids' stuff. I have a couple of VHSs from back in the day.
Nice. Someone holding on to the lost media. Very nice. I wish I had kept all of my old Godzilla VHS tapes, but I'm one of those like, well, why do I need to keep them if I've got the DVD, and why do I need to keep that if I've got the Blu-ray?
Once we moved out and grew up and stuff, my mom keeps all our stuff in totes like that could ever be like collectibles or anything. She's
Nice.
one of those moms.
I know, and like I said, I should have, but I moved way too many times, and every time you move, you try to see what you can get rid of and not keep and all that stuff. I should have kept mine, but oh well.
That's all right. As long as you got the Blu-ray now, and one of these days maybe we'll get a 4K and a whatever else they come up with.
Exactly.
All right. Rotten Tomatoes has a score of 60% for this film with an average rating of 4.7 out of 10. Godzilla is on screen for just under 12 minutes of the film, or around 14%, with what the internet says is a small teaser of him about a minute or 1% into the film, with us getting him in full glory around 31 minutes into the film, or 31 minutes exactly, and about 36% into the film.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that small teaser's a pretty decent reveal shot. He's in the rain. He's not there for very long, but it's a pretty decent reveal. But that's the moment they cut for the U.S. version of the movie.
Yeah. And with that fun fact from Chris, I will go ahead and go into the fun facts that I have for Son of Godzilla. For the second Godzilla film in a row, Toho produced an island theme adventure with a smaller budget than most of their monster films from this time period, as this kind of started the decline in ticket sales and whatnot. The show of films kind of not losing money per se, but they definitely weren't making as much as the original through Mothra vs. Godzilla, so the original four.
Yeah, the sort of reducing profit margins.
And then also, again, going with the island theme for this film, the A-list crew, or what they called the A-list crew of talent, was hired to work on this year's King Kong Escaped, which was Ishiro Honda, Eiji Tsuburaya, and Akira Ifukube. And the second string crew was billed to work on this project, as they had done with Ebero Horror of the Deep, and that included Jun Fukuda as the director, Sadamasa Arikawa as special effects, and then Masaru Sato as the composer. And this was the first film where Arikawa was officially listed as the director of special effects, as in Ebero Horror of the Deep, Eiji Tsuburaya was still listed, even though he did not do most of those special effects. He just overseen them.
Yeah, and kind of a shame because we were talking about Invasion of Astro Monster. It was one of those films that had, it had Honda as the director and it had an American cast member in the cast and crew, and it was sort of this kind of big kind of that level, that A production, as you say, and then from there, Honda goes on to King Kong Escapes, and that also has some American cast members in it, and is sort of that A production, and then Godzilla kind of gets relegated to this B production once again, and but I do have to say that I think director Jun Fukuda and composer Masaru Sato both improved dramatically over Ibra Horror of the Deep. So I think it's like a good sign that there's already a lot. I think this already is a much stronger effort than the previous movie.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on that. I do like this one, but I won't give any pointers on where I'm going to put it for our tier ranking or our Showa era franchise ranking so far. I'll keep that to the end.
Yeah.
Son of Godzilla was also the first Godzilla film to feature a female writer, which is that's a fun fact for even the year, the 1967. That's a fun fact to have a female writer and to be on a Godzilla film.
So that's why this movie isn't good. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. I like this movie.
Oh man. Uh, like 20% of our listeners are female, and now we're gonna hear about it.
Yeah. It's just a joke. Relax.
Toho wanted to create a baby Godzilla to appeal to the date crowd, with the idea that girls would like a cute baby monster. And We definitely got a baby monster, but a cute one might be a big overstatement on that one.
Yeah, I think one of the most honest and sincere monster behaviors in this movie is that when the Kamacuras first see baby Manila, their first instinct is to immediately kill it. I always thought that like that says a lot about what baby Manila looks like. And someone else, others have pointed out that I think they see the baby and pretty straight away they're like, it's a baby Godzilla or something like that. It's like that little thing doesn't necessarily automatically register as, oh, it must be a baby Godzilla. I don't know. I don't know. That's funny though.
Yeah, he is. Now down the road when we get baby Godzilla in Space Godzilla, that's a cute
Yeah,
baby monster, but
that's
this
much more
one
clear.
not so much.
But the instincts of giving the ladies something cute to sort of fawn over a little bit, that's a tried and true prospect. So many of the female fans of the Mandalorian are big fans because they love little baby Yoda, the Grogu creature. So it's not a bad instinct to try and give the girls something cute to like.
No, and I feel like it almost kind of gives them something to root for as well, because the motherly instinct, if you will, of Manila getting attacked by the Kamacuras and Kumonga later on and stuff. So they want him to see him be protected and whatnot. So I mean, it all adds up.
Exactly.
The Godzilla suit built for this film was the biggest in terms of size and girth, and this was done in order to give Godzilla a maternal appearance and to give a parent-like stature in contrast next to Manila. Arikawa would usually have 20 puppeteers at a time working on the various marionettes in this film, and the massive Kumonga puppet needed 2 to 3 people at a time to operate or puppeteer each leg.
Yeah, it's a pretty complex piece of puppetry and animatronics, to tell you the truth. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, especially for the time. There's the movie that I haven't seen, but I've wanted to for a long time. It was like 1955's, I believe it was just called Tarantula. And
Oh,
for a lot of that movie, they just built miniatures and used an actual tarantula for a lot of the scenes where it showed the supposed giant tarantula walking like past a house and whatnot.
yeah, I'm not a huge fan of spiders, so I'd probably the real footage movie. That'd probably kind of give me the heebie-jeebies more than any sort of digital or puppet or anything like that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can tell in snake movies, spider movies, crocodile movies. 9 times out of 10, you can tell when they're fake.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm just not the largest fan of tarantulas and spiders and things of that nature.
Oh, that's all fun and games.
Yeah, yeah, I wouldn't say I don't have arachnophobia or anything wild like that. I just don't care for those damn things.
If I can see where they're at, we're golden. As soon as it
Yeah,
disappears, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna
yeah,
go.
yeah. You rock me like a daddy long legs. There's nothing wrong with that. But like spider, no, thank you.
Don't want to travel to Australia and see a spider, that's bigger than your
Oh,
hand.
yeah, one of those spiders that's like the size of a dinner plate. Yeah, I won't go to Australia for a few reasons, and that's one of them. I can live without that.
We don't want a real life Kamunga running around. No thanks.
No.
All right, I'll get back to this. Styrofoam and paraffin were used for the snow falling on Sogol Island towards the end of the film, which I did not know. I was not sure what that was, so that was a interesting fact that that's what that was.
Well, at least it wasn't what asbestos like the original Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, that somebody call OSHA or something because
Yeah,
they're that is not okay.
yeah, yeah. I mean, they didn't know it back then, but yeah, someone told me that trivia. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I'm like, they're like drenched in it.
God, that's terrible. And especially I do electrical work, so I know exactly what that would be like, and that's
Oh
terrible.
gosh. golly. Yeah, and you wonder how many takes did they film? How much footage did they have of that? How much were they under that and for how long, you know?
Gosh. Absolutely no thank you. Yet again. There were many scenes in this film that were shot but deleted, showing Godzilla being mean or harsh and even actually striking Manila in this film, which I mean I wish we could have
Yeah.
got a version with it just to see
It
the difference.
it
To
would have
see
been
some emotion, you know.
yeah, I feel like it would have been fine back then, but man, that is something that people would be freaking out over nowadays. I mean, just the scene where he raises his hand like he's going to hit Manila. Some people seem to kind of want to throw a fit over that, you know, and it's like I don't know. I think it's funny. Like, don't judge the movie by the standards of 50 years later. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, look at all this stuff now. I mean, when I was younger, you know, if I smarted off to my parents, I got a backhand to the mouth, and I learned pretty quick. Like, hey, I
Yeah.
can't talk to these people this way.
Yeah, I have to share a meme that I saw someone share the other day where it was like this picture and it said you know, uh I was crying so my mom took me on a picnic and then the reply was like when I was a kid and I cried my mom gave me something to cry about.
Exactly. How times have changed.
Exactly. My gosh.
All right, that is all I have for the fun facts for you.
Sounds good.
Do you want to go ahead? Give me your favorite character for Son of Godzilla.
I will. My favorite character is the reporter journalist Goro Maki, the essentially the main character of the movie, but kind of more of an ensemble. But his sort of determination to kind of sniff out a story and embed himself within this team and earn his keep. That's a it's a good character dynamic. You know, he's not a typical scientist. He's not something like that. So is he sort of the unwanted outsider, and he kind of goes on the sort of love story with the lady. And I like that the Goro Maki name has made reappearances a few times throughout the Godzilla franchise. There's a Goro Maki character in Return of Godzilla 1984, and the scientist who discovers Godzilla in Shin Godzilla is Goro Maki. So it's a cool little interesting bit of like a legacy kind of character namesake.
Yeah, you beat me to it. That's exactly what I was going to bring up when I added that my favorite character was also Goro Maki.
Yeah. And I mean I love the scene where he unintentionally cooks the vegetables in like the underwear wash or the laundry wash, you know, like that's a great moment.
Yeah, there's quite a few parts in this film where you know they're doing a little overacting or something like that, and there's like a little joke that if you're paying attention you can catch on, and it'll give you a little chuckle
Yeah, I dig it. I dig it.
for sure. It would have been a nice little callback to see a Goro Maki in in -1 or something, or bring somebody into the new Godzilla vs Kong or Godzilla X Kong film. You know
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I think in general we don't have enough Japanese characters in the MonsterVerse movies. I love those movies, but I'm like, man, it's a great opportunity to have American and Japanese cast members in the films together, you know. But
Well,
whatever.
and then it's like you got rid of Sarazawa in King of the Monsters, and you haven't replaced him with a top-notch, interesting character yet. Granted, it's only been the Godzilla vs Kong, but we need one of those characters that we can latch onto. You know, Gia was phenomenal in Godzilla vs
Yeah.
Kong. Once we do that episode, we'll talk about her.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can't replace Sarazawa. The actor for that film was phenomenal, and I'm sure we'll talk about that in that episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you went first for character, so I'll trade off with you, and I'll go first for score. And my favorite score from the film was called Godzilla vs. Kamunga, and it was I just like that one. It's really upbeat and it's almost like a bunch of like tribal drum sounds, like the doom 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 doom. It is, and then during the fight scene when they're fighting, it goes on and plays, and it. I mean, I thought that was a phenomenal soundtrack for the film. I do like a lot of the soundtracks for this film. You know, I could throw it on and jam and have a good time, but that was by far my favorite of the film.
Yeah, there are a couple good tracks. The tracks I went with, in all the soundtrack listings that I saw, it was just listed as Gigantus, but I mean, obviously the creature name is Kamacuris, but it's sort of the theme of when they're attacking and then Godzilla comes, you know, and so it's kind of got this like and it just feels this kind of like creepy kind of tension, and I just really like that track.
Yeah, it's not really anything extra either. It's literally like two or three notes, but it for the scene when you're seeing Kamacuris or Kamacuris, you know, move and go kind of through the jungle area, the trees and whatnot, it kind of makes the scene.
Yeah, it's weird to say that the music sounds like a giant praying mantis. I don't know. You know, it just has this kind of creepy, eerie, insectoid kind of vibe to it, and it just sounds like it pairs with a giant praying mantis perfectly. So
Yeah, I like I said, I like most of the soundtrack in this film. So whatever you were gonna choose, I was probably gonna agree with you that it was a good track.
yeah, yeah.
So why don't we go ahead and get into our favorite quotes or most memorable line from the film? And I chose one from Dr. Kasumi, which was, if someone abused our system, they could freeze the entire world. The results would be the same as a nuclear holocaust. And I always seem to go back to those, the environmental stuff, and it's hard to find a quote in these, but that's the one I went with. I of course I went with one of the ones about the environment and another power, abusing a weapon.
I have one that I enjoy just because it's such an on the nose line where they're talking and he says, Godzilla, Godzilla's son, Kamacuris and Naokumaga. This is a real monster island, which is funny because the island kind of becomes Monster Island officially over the course of the Showa series. So it's kind of fun to have it kind of dropped right there in this movie. You know, two movies later when they're doing All Monsters Attack, they're referring to this place as Monster Island. So I don't know. I think that's kind of fun. You know, Destroy All Monsters, they kind of have Monster Island. You know, I think it's kind of neat when things like that don't feel like they're setting up for future movies retroactively kind of feel like they were setups for future movies.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a good quote and a good line in the film. And like it was it was hard to pick one from this film, but I mean the last couple it's kind of been hard. You know, the first couple films were a little more on the nose, a little more serious. At least the first 54, you know, there was a
Yeah.
bunch of quotes in that one.
Yeah, they're
Mothra
not
versus Godzilla, there were some good ones.
yeah, they're not loaded with a lot of kind of heavy dialogue, and then sometimes if you're watching the dubbed version, the lines are getting kind of maybe mistranslated a little bit, maybe kind of delivered in a little bit of a stilted way. So they're even less kind of memorable and and notable. So it's kind of tough for some of these dubbed films to kind of just like strike out at a great line of dialogue. So sometimes you got to kind of go with something a little more humorous.
Yeah, I find myself always going back to like something about the earth or something about the if we don't stop doing this, in 15 years, this is gonna die out, or God, there's gonna be another Godzilla or something. Always something about the Earth. I go back to that, and those
Yeah.
are kind of what I look for, given like a more serious quote in like a children's Godzilla film.
Yeah, and sometimes that kind of line gets shoehorned in like right at the end. You get a kind of lighthearted movie like King Kong versus Godzilla, and at the end, you'll have a character be like, "We need to respect nature more." It's like, what movie are you talking about? Because this is a pretty wild movie we would just watch. Like it's just fun. It's always fun.
Yeah, for sure. I will go ahead and give you my favorite scene, which in surprisingly in this film it wasn't any of the fight scenes. It was actually when Godzilla's trying to teach Manila how to use, I guess, his
Ah,
atomic breath.
nice. Yeah,
This I guess I just like that scene because I mean, like you said earlier, Godzilla kind of raises his hand to him, like, "Get it together! Like I'm here. I'm taking my time to show you this," and he steps on his tail eventually, and it's kind of just like a fun little father son moment. He's taking the time to show him the ropes, and before this, you got Manila jumping over, kind of like doing hopscotch back and forth with Godzilla's tail and stuff like that, jumping on it and landing on it. And
yeah.
it's just like a proud little like family moment in such a little kid film. And then Godzilla kind of steps on his tail. He gets the full heat ray out and he gives him like a little hug. It's like, oh, for a Japanese kaiju film, that's cute.
Yeah, I like it because it's a lot of kind of monsters doing their thing with no spoken dialogue, just kind of a lot of visual storytelling without humans really getting involved and saying a lot. And that's one of the things about this movie. I don't have the math on hand, and I haven't gone and done research. But if I were to make a guess, I would say this movie probably has the lowest amount of spoken dialogue by humans in a Godzilla movie because it just feels like there's a lot of sequences that are just the monsters doing their thing and not a lot of humans talking and interacting relative to the other movies. And I like that, and that sequence is kind of one of the big ones where as a kid you love that scene because you're just watching the monsters do their thing. And from the sound of it, in the upcoming Godzilla Kong the New Empire, it sounds like there's going to be a few really good sequences where there aren't humans and we are just kind of watching visual storytelling unfold with just the monsters on screen, which could be very, very cool and exciting.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when the news was released of the Godzilla vs Kong, where it said there was like an 8 minute or whatever it was fight at sea between Godzilla and Kong, that got everyone excited. Like, ooh, what is this going to be just going to be cutting back and forth in between? But with them saying in this next film, there's like a 10 or 12 minute sequence where it's just the monsters in this
Yeah,
film. Like that's
yeah,
exciting.
yeah, and people misinterpreted it as an 8-minute monster fight sequence, and that's not what the director said. He said 8 minutes of the monsters doing their thing. People assume that meant fighting, but if you read the full quote, he's like, no, it's like it's visual storytelling. The monsters just kind of doing stuff, so it could just be Kong in the wild and interacting with this creature, that creature, just moving through the hollow earth, just not necessarily one big 8-minute fight sequence, but just a visual sequence, a musical visual sequence of the monsters doing monster stuff, which is exciting and interesting.
Yeah, 100%. An absolute 100%. But I'm definitely
For
go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say my favorite scene is the scene where Godzilla rolls in and just curb stomps the Kamacuras when he's defending Manila. Like I love the way he just ragdolls them and smashes them and stomps them. Like it's just like a good old fashioned beat down. you don't often get monsters who just get to be kind of red shirts that Godzilla can just kill. Usually you have like a main monster, and so Godzilla has to fight it the whole movie, and it might fly away at the end or something. But a couple of the Kamacuras Godzilla just completely wrecks them, and I always loved that as a kid.
Oh yeah, he's delivering some body slams and he's
Yeah.
tossing them around like he's a wrestler back in the Attitude Era or something.
Yeah, and growing up as a little guy in the '90s, me and my older brother watched a lot of pro wrestling. So anytime the monsters kind of looked like glorified pro wrestlers, it was on brand for us, you know.
I used to think that when I was younger there was a like a little praying mantis. You find them every now and again up here in Wisconsin like we'll be playing softball and there'll just be one randomly in the outfield or something. And when I was younger, I picked one up, and you don't realize how strong the little bastards are.
Oh yeah,
They,
they've got yeah.
so I mean, for Godzilla to take on three giant ones of these things, then like they're absolutely strong for their size. When I was younger, I didn't realize that, but then as I grew up, I got into reading about animals, and I became an animal and dinosaur and shark nerd. So I started reading about all of them and watching videos and stuff, and them things are absolutely ridiculously strong for their size.
Yeah, one of the most horrifying videos you can see is a praying mantis that it's like a lizard, like a little house lizard almost, that kind of comes up to a praying mantis, and the praying mantis just locks on it, and that thing cannot get away, and then the praying mantis just starts devouring it, and it's a horrifying video to see, but it's really kind of it's one of those damn nature you scary moments for sure.
Damn, Nathan, you scary.
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
used to love that. All right. Why don't we'll get into some quick monster design on Godzilla, Kamanga, Kamacuras, and Manila for this film. What do we want to start?
uh
Let's get the
Godzilla's kind
spider out of the way.
Okay, spider out of the way. It's a big, convincing, awesome marionette. It kind of always makes me. We've got these things called like banana spiders that we sometimes see here in Florida. I don't know if they're regional or whatever, but they're sort of like you don't go near those spiders. And like seeing Kumanga with like the black and yellow kind of always made me think of like a banana spider, and it always kind of freaked me out. And I never really cared for spiders much anyway, but it's such a convincing animatronic. Like every time it does that close up zoom in of the mandibles kind of like gyrating and gestating before it shoots the needle out, it always gave me the heebie jeebies growing up. So yeah, super effective creature design on Kumanga.
Yeah, absolutely. I like seeing the scenes when they have Kumonga like raise up and almost like get face to face with Godzilla before he tackles him. That always once I realized, like this is an animatronic and stuff like that, I always thought that scene was super impressive with the legs going full extension and just again tackling Godzilla to the ground and getting on top of him. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
But on to the praying mantis, Kamacuras or Gigantus. I like that design as well. Like I said, the story about the praying mantis when I was younger. And when I was super little, the first time I seen this film, I thought it was like a giant mosquito or something of some sort. I was like, what in the world is this thing? And
What the
after,
Kamacuras?
yeah,
Yeah.
I
I
had
suppose
no idea what it
the
was when
red
I was younger.
the red sometimes had me thinking that maybe they were meant to be like giant ants almost, like a little bit. But because every praying mantis that I ever saw was green. So when I see it being all red and there's a lot of these close, I'm like, is that like an ant thing, like an ant creature? So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know why when I was like 6, I thought it was a mosquito or something for some reason. But and then a couple more watches and stuff like that, and then I was like, no, this is a giant praying mantis. Like that makes more sense. But yeah,
Yeah.
I like the design. It's literally I like when it's a little bit smaller and they see the eyes glowing in the forest. It's only
Oh yeah,
like 10 or
that's
12
actually
feet tall.
yeah, that's actually a really effective kind of creepy moment, and it's a very the puppets are or the animatronics or whatever you want to is they're very detailed. Someone joked once that the Kamacuras puppetry and models in this movie feel more detailed and realistic than the one you see in Godzilla Final Wars, where it looks very plastic and not very detailed. And it's very true. Like something just looks very convincing about them in this movie for the year that it was made.
Yeah, 100%. I absolutely like the way Kumonga and Kamacuras look in this film. And I think it works. It's a kids film, but I mean the bugs and insects still look somewhat, or for the most part, realistic. So I mean, to a 5 or 6 year old, this might be a little scary. Seeing the giant bugs. Or if you're like me and Chris, we probably were having a heyday and enjoying it.
Yeah, yeah,
When it comes to Godzilla, this is one of my least favorite designs. For what I believe Chris calls the frog head, if I'm
yeah.
right on that.
Yeah, I didn't originate that. That's kind of like internet lingo, but yeah, he's kind of got like the way that you would see like a frog drawn in like a cartoon with like the big mouth and the eyes kind of set behind it in the back. Like I kind of like that's kind of what this looks like, and I proudly have a T-shirt with this Godzilla design on it. So like I'm cool with the Godzilla frog head design, but it is one of the more infamous looks for Godzilla for sure.
Yeah, I like everything about it but the face and the head. I'm not
And
a
then
I'm not a fan of the frog look whatsoever.
and the neck feels a little long. I don't know, the neck or just, like, the way it's structured and shaped, it just feels like the neck's a little long. Like you said, they wanted to make it, like, taller than Manila, but it's like it just feels kind of like, I don't know, like a floppy head, like it's like this floppy neck and the head just at the top, and it just feels kind of wobbly, I don't know.
Yeah, they had to do that. I wish I could find the size. I'm sure I could, of the Marchin the dwarf character who played Manila, but I know that they had to make this suit quite a bit taller so that the Manila suit that the dwarf was wearing would be dwarfed. No pun intended, but
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, definitely one of the least aggressive looking Godzilla head designs.
man, I'm missing this design makes me miss the Mothra vs Godzilla suit.
Yeah, this design makes me miss almost any other Godzilla design. I mean, nothing against it, but like just like there's some easy conversations about what some of the best and worst Godzilla movies are. This is a pretty easy conversation to say like, hey, no bad Godzilla design, but there's definitely least good ones, and this is one of the least good ones.
Yeah, and speaking of more of least good, this is probably the least good baby Godzilla design.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's definitely an oddball. I mean, I suppose Manila looks kind of like a child version of the Godzilla in this movie. It just doesn't look like a proper child version of a typical Godzilla design.
Yeah, no, I am not a fan of Manila at all. Once we get him in Final Wars, I
Uh, It's
I
a
don't know
little
if I
better.
like that version any better,
It's a
but
lit. It's a little better in that it feels a bit less like this one feels like a almost like it's trying to be like an old shriveled up Godzilla just as much as it's trying to be like a young baby Godzilla. Like it has this like the gray color and everything and like kind of like the wrinkly face just gives it like this old man vibe. So it's kind of weird that it's a baby or a child, but it also like feels weirdly like old. I don't know. It's odd. It's odd. It's unique. It's interesting. It's certainly memorable to a degree in a sense, but it's a little odd.
yeah, one of the things I thought is that like that in certain scenes, that he's like wet around the mouth and stuff like that, like when he's
Like he's
born and
yeah,
when
yeah,
he's
yeah,
eating the
yeah.
fruit, and it looks weird to me.
Oh yeah, newborn Minya is definitely kind of yeah, is like constantly got the kind of embryonic fluid all over him, It's definitely odd, you know.
Yeah, I'll take it for this film being, a kiddish film in the late '60s. They were trying
Yeah.
to again draw in the female crowd. So
Yeah.
I'll take what they give us.
Yeah, hats off to Godzilla for stepping up and adopting a kid that didn't have any parents, you know? It's like, sheesh.
Well, now since we're done hating on Manila, why don't we
Oh, we're not done. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. We'll
we'll
never
be hating
we're
on him in
never done.
future films.
We're never done. It's never over.
Baby Godzilla does improve in future films. We will give love to that.
Yeah, sure, maybe.
But why don't we go? I'll uh I'll tag you in for this one to go first if you're all right with that on our ranking list for this film or for
Okay,
our
yeah.
first 8 films.
Yeah, so we're 8 films deep. So generally, I would at this point, I think, put Ebra at the bottom just cuz it's kind of it was a King Kong script retrofitted to be a Godzilla movie, kind of off-brand, like different fairies, different director, different composer, just kind of like an off-brand Godzilla movie. So Ebra's bottom for me. Then I'd put Raids again above that at number 7 spot. Number 6 spot, I'd put Astro Monster. Just edging it, I'd put Son of Godzilla, although the more I think about it, maybe that's inverted. Maybe I put Son in the number 6 spot, Astro in the number 5 spot, Ghidorah in the number 4 spot, King Kong versus Godzilla in the number 3 spot, Mothra versus Godzilla number 2, and the OG Godzilla number 1.
All right. All right. Not a bad list at all, but I will counter yours with we'll start it again. Ghidorah the three-headed monster at 8.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. I know. I know. Ebra Horror of the Deep at 7.
All right, all right.
Son of Godzilla at number 6.
Okay.
Godzilla Raids Again at number 5.
All right.
King Kong vs. Godzilla at number 4. The original Godzilla at number 3. Invasion of Astro Monster at 2. And Mothra vs. Godzilla at number 1. And I feel
Fair
like
enough.
I'm changing from episode to episode a little bit.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you know what?
It's tough. It's tough, and when I see it, I'm like, man, I'm like, I I don't know. I always think like, well, Raids Again. I kind of do like Raids Again, maybe more than Son of Godzilla. I don't know. Like it's kind of more serious and it's kind of darker. Like like I don't know. Like I second guess. I second guess all of it. I suppose. I don't know. It's tough.
It is. It's hard. And like I've said before, I've tried to rank all of the Godzilla films multiple times, and my bottom like 4 or 5 are always the same. My top 10 are usually always the same. But
Yeah.
them, from this is back in the day before the most recent newer films. So the 30 from 30 to 11, it's like it's a mashup.
Yeah. It's kind of tough. It's kind of tough. Yeah, it's a fine line because it's like I think Raids Again is kind of perpetually underrated, but then, like I don't know, Son of Godzilla just has I don't know, I just have fun with that one, but then it's tough. The sort of it's easy to do my sort of top 4, top 5, but it's kind of the middle of the pack kind of gets a little difficult, even within just the 15 Showa films.
Well, I am going to give you a long time to think
Uh-huh.
about if we're going to do
A full
an all.
38 ranking. Yeah.
Yep, I will give you as
Yeah.
much time as you need for that, which
Yeah.
might be the rest of
Yeah.
the year.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be slowly contemplating, slowly figuring it out. I'll turn to the good old fashioned Google users and just rank them based on whatever Google rated them.
That would be a matchup.
Yeah, that'd just be what the Google users don't know how to give a bad Godzilla rating. It's like 90% for every movie, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So these
uh,
are all my favorite, all
yeah,
coming in at number 1.
yeah, it's a 30-way tie.
Oh, why don't we go into some final thoughts on 1967 Son of Godzilla before we get out of here?
Sure. It's a fun movie. It's got a charm to it. It's very 60s. It's very sort of emblematic this is sort of when the late Showa era starts to begin. I think once you start to go past Astro Monster, you start to get into the sort of a little bit of the wonkier side, a little bit of the more Godzilla behaving like a person kind of a side. But I mean, it's a fun movie. It's got a lot of charm to it. It's a nice touchstone of the series. Godzilla having a son. I don't know if we'll see that brought back up in any modern incarnations of the character. It might be a concept that's sort of left in the past, but it certainly is a notable concept for the franchise.
Yeah, absolutely. I have fun with this film. I believe my little girl, when I was watching this one, watched it or was like kind of taking a peek at it. I watch these films so often that I feel like at 2 years old, she knows who Godzilla is because I'll put a movie on and I'll be like, Amia, where's Godzilla? And she'll point to the TV, and if
Uh,
it's on, like she knows, like I'm raising a Godzilla fan already.
that's good. That's good. That's excellent. That's excellent.
Maybe so hopefully when she's older, she'll be able to listen to these and have some fun. That's my dad and
Yeah,
Chris. They're
th-
talking about a movie we just watched.
that'll be great. That'll be great.
But yeah, this is a fun one. This is one of the ones that if you want to get your young one into Godzilla, it it would probably be very easy for them because there's a baby Godzilla in it. There's a lot of monsters in it, and there's just a lot going on that a kid can root for in this film. With like the adult and baby Godzilla interactions and whatnot. So, all in all, it's probably not one of my favorites of the entire franchise, but it's still a fun film to throw on here and there and watch.
Agreed. Agreed.
All right. I think that's all I have for you, sir, and anyone listening on Son of Godzilla. So, if that's all you have as well, another big thanks to you for recording another one with me as we continue our journey through the franchise.
Yeah, absolutely happy to be here always.
All right. So, Son of Godzilla was followed by Destroy All Monsters, which was released on August 1st, 1968. So, if that's all we have, check out our Facebook page on Facebook, Chills and Thrills Podcast. And I just made a YouTube channel and uploaded all the podcasts we have done so far, and we'll continue every Monday at 8 a.m. to upload to that YouTube channel as well as
That's awesome.
Spotify and Amazon Music. So it's trying to get them out there a little more. Give
Yeah,
everyone our opinion on Godzilla.
that's awesome.
So before we get out of here again, I want to say thank you, Chris, and thank you to anyone who's listening. But until next time.